City Council work session March 11th, 2025 to order. I want to welcome everybody that's here in attendance and also those who are joining us online. Work sessions are for an opportunity for council to receive information and also to discuss items of interest in the city. We do not vote in work session, nor do we carry any of this information up to our 7 o'clock meeting. I would appreciate it. After presentation and council discussion, we will open it up for public comment. With that, we'll move on the agenda. Employee new hire recognition, downtown operations. Linda.
Sorry for the trip. Good evening, Mayor and Council. I'd like to introduce Jennifer Pointer. She's our new events and tour coordinator. She comes, her and her husband moved here into their family home in July of last year. And I actually met her and her husband as volunteers at the Shrimp Festival. And she brings a lot of knowledge and of events. She has coordinated events for 2 different chambers in California. So we're happy to have Jennifer.
Everybody work too.
Still working. Thank you. So I look forward to all the events. So anything, let me know. You know where to find me.
Thank you.
Okay, next, fire department, Chief Hodges.
Good evening, everyone. Fire department has 3 new hires to introduce tonight. Dante joined us certified from New Jersey, so we'll welcome him to the Low Country. And Yvonne has joined us from Chatham County. So we welcome him to Beaufort from Savannah. He's also served in the military. And David retired from the Marine Corps recently. I think he took about a year off and decided he's still too young. He wanted to work. He's gonna be a firefighter. He starts the fire academy on Monday for us. Right. So we're glad to have all 3 of them on board.
Welcome aboard.
Thank you. Thanks for joining us.
Okay, before we get into presentations and interviews for applicants for boards and commissions, public hearing that was posted in the paper for 5 o'clock is actually going to be held at 7 o'clock. So if you're here for the 5 o'clock meeting, we're not going to have that public hearing until 7 o'clock. Okay, just want to make an announcement.
We'll have an additional public hearing.
And we'll have an additional one next month.
Yes. At 7 o'clock.
At 7 o'clock. And now we're going to interview applicants for the PTAC board, Park Trees Advisory Committee. Shay Michael, come on up, join us. And what I would like you to do, Shay, is just basically tell us a little bit about yourself and why you want to be on the PTAC committee, and then we'll have individual council members ask you questions.
My name is Shay Michael. I will have lived in the city of Beaufort, coming up on 5 years. I'm a native South Carolinian, lived here my whole life. I came from the upstate, in York, South Carolina, where I became a master gardener. I am a plastics teacher. I teach Latin and epic poetry, as my day job. I have been looking for an opportunity to serve civically, and this came into on my radar, and I sit before you now asking for a position.
Any questions for council?
I'm very well recommended by staff. It's just, very
Outstanding.
appreciate
Yeah,
it.
I just want to thank you. Thank you for volunteering.
Oh, certainly.
Yeah.
Yeah, same. I actually don't have any questions, and there's so much that you can probably teach us in regards to trees, and I don't have any experience in that. I do know that there's some studies that the city previously had conducted that are on our website that maybe you'll find helpful, but I'm just very thankful for the fact that somebody with a resume like yours just stepped up to volunteer for this board, and we certainly need it, so thank you.
Thank you.
That's it, Shay.
The position is okay.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
Okay, next with the TDAC, which is the Tourism Development Advisory Committee. We have Design Byers.
Yes.
And I'll ask the same question. Tell us a little bit about yourself and why you want to be on
Well, my name is Dr. Cassandra Byers. I'm originally from Beaufort. We moved to Atlanta, Georgia, when I was 13, 14 years old. I recently moved back here to Beaufort. I love the area. My grandmother, Rosalie Kazan, is the person, she did the Della Festival, and I saw her passion, her love for the city, educating the community, the world about the gem of the Della culture in this community. And I just saw her passion. I love this city. I would like to be a part of the tourism development advisory committee because I know the value of events that bring people to the area. And I know that I would also bring diversity to the committee as well.
Council, any questions? Comments? Well, just a comment. I have a special attachment to Pizarro, and Pizarro comes from Pizarro. And her mother was my English teacher in high school, probably doesn't show it the way I talk, but.
Bitch, we were the same. We let you do.
But I'm glad to see you carrying on your legacy services.
A comment, I remember your grandmother well, and I believe it was your aunt, Lolita.
Yes.
Taught me French in high school. Excuse me, trying to teach.
It's not very. We appreciate it very much. It's nice to have you back home.
I'm really glad to be back.
Thank you for doing all this.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I am not familiar with your family, and it's my first time meeting you, so
He's
it's
just
my
trying to
pleasure.
show how much younger he is.
It's my pleasure to meet you, and thank you for stepping up and volunteering to be a part of this board. I will ask, and if you don't feel comfortable answering this, then that's totally fine, but are you familiar with the process that's currently in place? And as a spectator, is there anything that you feel like we can do better to refine our process in regards to?
The process that I am familiar with is that the taxes or that comes from the accommodations. If it's anything over $50,000, then that goes into the tax pool in terms of grants and awards for people who come to say, like money for this event or that event. So, and so that's the part that I really would be excited about being a part of. To say, hey, there's balance in terms of, a variety of events.
I would agree with you, and if you haven't yet, I would encourage you to read through the state statute that governs these funds, just to be very familiar with what expenditures are allowed, because there are some that aren't. There's, expenditures that are governed by state statute. And we do have a portion that has to come out to the general fund, and then 30% that goes to marketing. So as you work your way through and become more familiar with the board and the process, if you haven't already, I would just take this opportunity to encourage you to be familiar with what expenses are allowed. But thank you.
Thank you.
Any other comments, questions? Well, another quick round, that was good. Thank you very much.
It's a pleasure. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you. All right, next on the agenda are discussion items, a request to add 2 board seats to the Cultural District Advisory Board. Sarah?
No, we got.
Oh, I'm sorry. My bad, Sarah, sorry. I had it marked off.
Just seeing if you were paying attention. Good job.
Next, a presentation on advancing officer well-being through the Cummings Foundation, Chief Price. My bad.
Yeah.
Good evening, Mayor and City Council. Great to see you again this evening, staff. I am so excited to be here tonight because I have with me Dr. Baker from the Cummings Foundation, and he will tell you all about the Cummings Foundation and what they hope to do and what they will do for the officer health and wellness within our police department. This came to me as a fortuitous, in my opinion, email, just out of the blue, of wanting to help our police department. Of course, when you want to help our police department, I'm going to answer that call. And so we had a meeting with Dr. Baker, and that's how this whole began last fall, a little bit before that. And so, yeah, October. Okay, it started in October. So without further ado, Dr. David Baker is going to tell you about the Cummings Foundation.
Thank you, Mayor, Council. It's good to be with you. Tell you a little bit about me. I'll tell you a little bit about the foundation, and I'll tell you a little bit about the police wellness program. So I'm a mostly retired clinical psychologist. My wife and I moved down here about 2 years ago, although I have long family roots in 4 generations of my father's family from Dillon County. In fact, my great uncle's family were the founders of South Porter. Iconic institution. Yes. So I have known the Cummings family for 25 years. Nicholas Cummings, he passed a few years ago. He was 95 years old. Nick was, I describe, as a warrior, World War II veteran, in the airborne, a jump captain. His experience in war taught him about the deleterious effects of stress and trauma. He used the provisions of the GI Bill to become a psychologist, and then became, I would say, one of the most important professional psychologists of mid-20th century America. He started the first managed care company in psychology, and was dedicated to giving back through the creation of the Cummings Foundation for Behavioral Health. He led a lot of advances in evidence-based, holistic behavioral wellness. When I took my retirement from university, where I was for 20 years, Nick and his wife Dot asked me if I would come on board with them to help kind of shepherd in a new phase and a new era in the program. And that was in 2020. I went and met with them. They're located in Reno, Nevada. I spent a week. We kind of dug down into what they would like to do. And they decided at the time that they were very concerned about a mental health crisis in policing and the lack of response, at least in my psychology community, to that. And so we formulated the plans to create an evidence-based behavioral wellness program. My wife and I had relocated to Arlington, Virginia. And my same memo, I said, I'll get this done. I contacted the chief of police in Arlington County. That was 5 years ago. We're finishing our 5th year there. So we put together a comprehensive behavioral wellness program for the officers of Arlington County, department of about 350 officers. We implemented that program. We evaluated that program, and now we're kind of wrapping up. We've had a lot of success with that. I'll explain to you more about what we do. And the foundation said, the board said, we'd like to kind of extend and continue and move on to other departments. The goal is to create an evidence-based behavioral wellness program that can be taken to any department in the country. So I was located here, and that's kind of what I helped them do, now serving as chief of staff. So I just started sending out some emails to chiefs of police in the Low Country. And one of the most positive, enthusiastic responses I got was Chief Price. And so after about 6 months of planning, we've decided, the board voted to award the 2nd program in the country to the Beaufort Police Department. So I'll tell you a little bit about that. We believe that officers have a difficult and demanding job. I think we all know, we all understand that. But we want to support officers. Our belief is that wellness is a critical need, and that a healthy officer is a well officer serves himself, herself, and their family and their community much better. So what we do is we want to provide an comprehensive evidence-based physical and mental health wellness program. We provide a number of services, health screenings. We start with a health fair, which we've scheduled for April 2nd. We contract with a healthcare company that works specifically in public safety. They come out and do a very comprehensive biometric screening, cardiovascular screening. So they'll be out doing blood draws and screenings. They provide a very comprehensive panel to the officers and then follow that up with consultation with a dietitian and nutritionist. So diet and nutrition is an important part of that. Yes, sir.
Is this program totally voluntary for each officer, or you just say do it?
This program, yes, this part of it is voluntary. The mental health check-in that we have as part of this program, which is new to his program as well, it was something that I requested, that is mandatory. But it's also confidential.
Yes.
And the person who does the mental health check-ins is specific to first responders, and they've received specialized training in first responders.
We also provide, we're in the process of, we're providing a gym. We're equipping a gym in the department. We're providing a personal trainer. So that is one of the most popular parts of our program, not surprisingly. Mental health services, in addition to mental wellness check-ins, we provide evidence-based, law enforcement specific resilience training, peer support training, and we'll be also kind of bringing in technology, web and app-based support for ongoing wellness. This is done on the basis, like I got to know the chief, and I've been coming up and spending time with the officers in the department, doing a needs assessment, finding out what officers would like, what the command staff would like, and that all goes into our planning. Everybody likes the gym. It's no surprise, which is great, and we're very happy to do. We have, again, everybody is culturally competent in terms of having experience in law enforcement, serving law enforcement. It's critically important to us. So that was part of our needs assessment to provide a fully equipped departmental gym, conduct our biometric and mental health screening, introduce our trainings, and then we'll be evaluating the program. And again, it's a good question. I appreciate that. It is voluntary. We do collect data, and we make it clear that, Manager Marshall has agreed that there's a kind of like we keep a firewall. That all is very confidential. It's anonymous participation. We respect that privacy, and do everything we can to maintain the confidentiality of the officers. But the data that we gather is critical to advancing this program. The advantage of being here is that we have 5 years of experience in a large metropolitan police department. We've learned our lessons along the way, and we're really excited to kind of fine tune that and bring that here. Especially appreciate how receptive.
So is this the first one you've done outside of Arlington?
Yes, it is. Yes. Obviously, our first concern is for the officers, reduce stress, improve mental health, and including physical health and resilience. Want to increase job satisfaction and performance, particularly as you well know, the challenge of recruitment and retainment of officers, and as important to us, a better work-life balance and family well-being. We also believe strongly that, again, healthy officers can better serve their communities, enhance public safety, improve. And one of the reasons I would add that Buford was selected was the board and the family were very impressed with the level of positive community engagement that Chief Price and the department are engaged in. That was an important factor in our decision to come here. So, proven success, the Arlington County Police Department. We started in 2020, but obviously with COVID, we had a number of delays. A lot of the services that we're bringing here were introduced there, resilience training. We did a virtual reality stress management. That was something that found sounded good, but in operation wasn't all that successful. The exercise specialist and the health coach, immensely popular and really positive results. We've extended that funding. That lasted, like I said, this will be our fifth and final year in Arlington, and those resources. The foundation and the family are very generous, but at the end of the day, it is a limited pool of money. And so we're really pleased that we're transitioning now and able to provide those resources to you. So happy to answer any questions.
How long is the program last for us?
Well, it's scheduled for a year. Welcome all of you on April 2nd. We're gonna have, we'll have quite a launch for the program. The board will be here. One of the family members will be here. The executive director has already been here. We all met with the executive director, Dr. Longshore, who's a native of Orangeburg. The entire staff of the foundation will be here on April 2nd. We'll launch the program. We'll do an ongoing evaluation about every 4 to 5 months. Redo the blood draw, do surveys. And the board meets in November to decide funding for the following year. I would assume that this is at least a 2-year commitment, because we're getting started midway through our cycle. So we'll have data, we'll have preliminary data in November. I have every reason to be encouraged. I've been spending time here and I'm really excited about the program. We're all really excited about it. I'm really happy that the entire staff can come from Reno and see how beautiful Beaufort is, how special the department is in this community. So I'd love to have you all out.
Aside from the obvious, the board making the decision as far as how long the program is extended for, what are some of the criteria, if any, that would determine whether or not we extend for the 2 years or when the program?
Sure. The first and most important thing is a lesson we all know. It's about leadership. So we don't want to go where we're not wanted. And so we have to have a commitment from the top. And as long as that commitment is there, which it is very much so, with Chief Price, which is appreciated. That's a very important factor. And I think that probably is, if the officers, and this is for the officers. And so if the program is well received, we'll be surveying. I'll be here regularly. I keep my ear to the ground, so to speak, and we'll be doing more confidential but informal surveys of how the program is being received. And if we're seeing results. We don't have to get positive results in order to stay. These things take time. We all understand that in doing research. But it's going to be whether the leadership wants us here and whether the officers are receiving the program. Those are good.
It's more of a comment. So I just want to commend the chief for jumping on this when you saw the opportunity. And I want to thank you, Dr. Baker, for selecting our program, given the critical work that police officers do and the kind of decisions they have to make. It's important that they be well. And so I'm glad this program is here. Yeah, thank you, Chief.
Yeah. Agreed.
Totally agree.
Sounds like a winner.
It is. Yeah.
You guys need some firefighters too, or just police officers?
Right now, it's just police officers. We'd like to expand all public safety, including fire, dispatch, sheriff. That depends on how the structure of your
Council.
Okay, you should know they labeled one of the areas upstairs the Hall of Fame. And that was the gentleman who's doing the fitness. So just may want to steer.
Is it a Hall of Fame?
Yeah, when we got the schematics for what, so they've got equipment and it's coming, it's en route. So they had all the drawings and everything, the CAD drawings of our upstairs and where they're gonna put this equipment and everything. And he actually labeled one of them Hall of Fame. I was like, oh, that's. Something that- Yeah.
They're backwards that from a medical standpoint.
Yeah.
If you have the opportunity to meet Mike, he's in Arlington, he runs the gym for the Arlington County PD. And he is quite an interesting person. He's really great at what he does. And he was a college baseball player, Division I athlete, who had an injury. He said he couldn't move left, he couldn't move right, but he could still move forward and back fast. And he is originally from St. Thomas. So he went back and became a member of the St. Thomas Olympic bobsled team. Wow. So he's
I remember the story about.
that was a different.
That's Jamaica.
That was Jamaica, yeah. But he will be here for the opening, doing 15-minute increments in the gym. he'll be doing structured classes, and this is part of the last thing I'll say is I know you're busy. But we want to engage the community as much as we can. I'll be going out more to speak to the community about this, to raise awareness and hopefully support, you know, if people want to collaborate or join and support the work of the foundation, we'll do that. So we already are subcontracting with a gym here in Beaufort. I forget the gentleman's name, but that is under, that's, I don't know if I've talked to you about that, but Sam?
Yes.
Yes,
Okay,
yes,
yes.
yep.
So they have local partners here that they're working with, so when they're away, we'll have people here to help us out.
There'll be three to four classes a week. They have a structured training program. It's pretty intense. And, but it will be using local trainers, personal trainers to do that. So. Yeah.
Thank you very much. I really appreciate y'all supporting this. I know the officers do. They're very excited, and I know they're very excited because they've cleaned up that hole upstairs in less than a day.
Good. Looks ready, looks ready. Yeah.
This would be a good candidate too for the achievement awards from MASC.
Yes, yes, sir, yes.
Yeah,
Keep that in mind.
also, Mayor, Council, it's an exciting program.
Oh, yeah.
There's no doubt about it. The potential is tremendous in terms of what it offers our current police force. However, it also has a tertiary effect that I see, and that is the ability to enhance our recruiting efforts.
Mhm.
Because I don't know of any other departments in the region or in the country, except for Arlington, what we're not competing with, obviously, that have a program like this. And so that's another upside of this
It's also
program.
gonna help you workers' comp and liability. Insurance company.
Yeah, we did find that there's some preliminary findings from our first phase.
And that's why I'm so excited about this. It's not just a health and wellness program. It has metrics and data behind it, research behind it to support it. It's hard to find.
Yeah. All right, I keep saying it's my last thing, but I will say the last thing is that it will make Beaufort a leader. And I think you'll find, I'm already getting calls from people. They're finding out about this. This is the first real kind of public announcement of this, but I think a lot of people will be interested in what's happening. Know that from experience.
So we appreciate you reaching out and Chief Price for responding.
Absolutely, for sure.
Thank you very much.
All right, thank you. See you April 2nd.
You'll send us emails.
Yes.
And now moving on, now we'll get Sarah Sutton. Sorry, Sarah, and a request to add 2 board seats to the cultural district advisory. Bring the whole crew.
Hi, guys. And ladies, how are y'all? And they start. So the Cultural Arts District is requesting an additional 2 seats to their board to help with their planning and initiatives that they have going forward. Currently, they're made up of a representative from USCB, Center for the Arts, the Beaufort History Museum, the Historic Beaufort Foundation, the Greater Beaufort Port Royal CVB, and the Tabernacle Church, as well as a member at large. You might see what I have. I think you're more than welcome to.
So, we've really been, very, very excited. Linda and her fabulous team talked to us about working on, kind of elevating the taste of Beaufort, over a year or so ago. We've been working behind the scenes on seeing what that could look like. So we'll be taking on, 2 different projects that will be happening in 2026 that we just need more help for, and a larger bandwidth on our board. What we will be adding for the taste will be a juried art show at USCB, and also on the ground, so we have juried arts market. This will not do anything to compete with our craft marketers. This will be a little bit more about what you would find in Charleston, so a little bit higher end. And then in Washington Street Park, which I should be more excited about USCB, but Washington Street Park, the neighborhood has put together a phenomenal idea of how to celebrate that park and their heritage. And Mitzi, do you want to talk a little bit about that?
It is very exciting and, you know, if you listen to the members we have on the board now, you realize that all of these members have full-time, very involved jobs. So the time to organize something like a festival is, you know, we need more manpower. The Arts District has done wonderful things like the Bench Project, everybody's probably familiar with. And, you know, we're working on, I'm kind of heading up, how a program, figuring out how we, you know, even maintain those benches and things over time. So, you know, we really just need to have the workforce to be able to take on these larger projects that we're so excited about. The Washington Park neighborhood has really come up. They've really bought in, and they, you know, they're going to have a new bandstand, and they're going to have shows, and they want to make like a carnival atmosphere all day and have performers, you know, that are going to be going on. And, you know, we're envisioning having shuttle buses that are going from the Taste over to Washington Park, over to USCB. So this is we've been already working on it for a couple of years. And so this is a big project, and we really need more hands on deck. And, you know, also with everybody being so busy and all these professionals go out of town for conventions and meetings, at times it's hard for us to have enough forum. So it would really help with that too, and to add, you know, some more diversity and get more members, more ideas. So that's kind of where our thoughts are on this. And
Well, and one of the specific seats that we wanted to ask, as y'all know, the Freeman Art District is on fire. They are doing such a phenomenal job of doing so many great community events, and tourism events too, which I'll get up. So we were hoping to bring them on, a representative from their organization on as part of this, because for those of you, the cultural district is actually includes those two neighborhoods. So it's a perfect partnership. So that was very specific. And at large, that's just because to keep the numbers where we need them. But for the Washington Street Park, only because I didn't know who Silas Green from New Orleans was. Is anybody familiar? Okay, evidently Washington Street Park back in the 20s and 30s, and I'm sure I'm gonna mess this up. Used to always have this wonderful show that would come. And it was a big part of how they would celebrate their heritage. It was kind of more of a vaudeville sort of tent show sort of thing. And so they want to recreate that. So we've got all the best people working on it, and I think that's gonna add a different flavor to the taste. Talking about how important our neighborhoods are, and also how that's what Beaufort is. We are a neighborhood. So our request is pretty simple. We're pretty excited about the opportunity for growing. And if y'all have any questions or specific.
How many seats are there now, 7 or 6?
I stay confused because the city also represents.
And the cities are represented, which makes it 7,
7.
Yes.
so it would be 9.
Yeah, it's not that big of a.
we're starting out with the Washington Street neighborhood, but we're hoping to expand it to other neighborhoods as well in the future.
When would you have these events? Because one thing I'm finding in Beaufort now, it used to be you look forward to events, but now there's too many.
Well, Bill, we have made this, we're gonna do it during the taste. So we're not reinventing, we talked to Rob Wells and said, you know, it's just a good time, kind of to spread, and especially if we do have a shuttle system to get people around. The art component will actually have a multi-day component to it. And also has the opportunity to grow, you know, that will have a very huge, we hope, regional. But, you know, but no, we're not gonna invent another event for you, sorry.
Like I said, with our shuttles, they'll be taking you from the event, you know, and we're rebranding the Taste to working on that now to include the arts and the culture. Taste, arts, culture.
So the taste will be not just taste for food, but taste for art.
That's it.
A true taste of
idea.
Beaufort.
Right. Yeah.
Not literally just taste, but.
Right.
The full taste.
It will be very full.
Full plate.
Be very full. Because there'll also be food at these areas. I mean, you know, like for a party without food. But of course, the major stuff will be happening down there. But we're just excited for the opportunity to kind of help grow that event or make it a little different or a little bit longer. And show up our neighborhoods. And Mitzi was a great point. We do hope to add other neighborhoods as they come on and maybe make the taste a little broader. You know, we have so many beautiful parks and that we're so fortunate to have, and so much history and so much arts and talented people here. So, that's kind of, I just wanted to share, you'll be hearing more.
I like the idea that the taste includes more than just balance, so. But yeah, you know, reaching out to those neighborhoods that doing the normal taste of vehicle. People may not have gotten to those other places like Washington Street Park, and the timing is great because park is being upgraded and it's gonna have a pavilion and it should be all.
And there's other great thing is that, the tie-in with the neighborhood's excited.
Yes.
So they're actually, along with help from us in the city, are actually planning it. So, you know, that's huge when you're building and growing an event and community. So we're super excited.
Party for the sense.
Party for the senses. Oh, good job.
Well, as it relates to the question about expansion, I support that. I think that so long as we can have the volunteers and people are willing to step up and help, the demand and the need for what they can provide is definitely there. I guess my only question would be, and this is more of a Scott question because it's pertaining to the process, but there was a comment, I think it was maybe in your last meeting, about the timing of this, because now you're in the March work session. And so if we see this for the first reading of the ordinance in April and we have to see it again in May, then it could be a little while before you guys actually benefit from the additional expansion. So I don't know if there's a way for us to expedite, or maybe you got volunteers that are already helping before these seats are there. Maybe that's the case, but if there was anything that we could do on our end to help facilitate expediting the expansion, I would be in favor of that, but I definitely support this and appreciate the recommendation.
Well, I think with the seat addition of Freeman Arts District, I feel like that doesn't take, but I know that the procedure would be for somebody at large would have to go through the same process that we saw tonight. So, but that would be great.
You can always encourage the submission of the applicants.
I will.
And we do appreciate you getting us on the agenda today.
Yeah.
You're right, we were worried because Sarah said, I'm not sure if we'll be able to get on or not, and the time was of the essence. So
We can accelerate it a little bit. If we
Sarah,
have a successful, oh, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt.
Oh, no, please go ahead. You actually have an answer.
If we have a successful first reading of the ordinance, we can have an advertisement ready to roll, and as soon as we have a successful first reading, I think we're solid going ahead and putting out a call for applicants.
Okay.
And so we can go ahead and get those applications in, and we may be able to simultaneously with the second reading, currently have your interviews in May and have a second reading in May, and then you can appoint as early as June. So.
Thank you so much. That gives us a lot more hands on deck.
Since you're kind of rolling it through a lot of the town, just a consideration, maybe, have you thought of talking to the Park Service? Get them involved in it?
And they're part of a list of our partners.
Okay.
So, and I know very much involved for especially the Washington Street Park. So, because we have, you know, a list of people we want to invite and make sure, but again, it goes back to we're leaving a lot of this up to the neighborhood, because they know their history and especially the old commons. So.
You going to actual neighborhood meetings?
Yes. We have a neighborhood representative, so, and it's, all the usual suspects. And they're very, very excited, so, we're looking forward to it, and, we're gonna have a new logo for the taste that we will actually have this year. We'll actually have a booth or something talking about what we're going to be doing next year and encouraging people to return next year. Yeah, Mike, would you like to be part of it? There you go. It's almost had it work. Yeah. Anyhow,
Sure.
but we thank you. We thank you for, continue to support what we're trying to do with the cultural history.
Thank you very much.
Appreciate y'all coming presenting.
Yeah.
Yeah, next. Yeah, I guess you're gonna stick around for listening to
I am Linda and Joe.
Joe Ryan. Lawrence.
Fine.
Oh, you're welcome. Let's talk about a discussion regarding the downtown Beaufort Merchants Association.
So, Mayor and Council, I'm just gonna give you a little bit of like a reminder of where we were at with downtown Beaufort Merchants Association. Several years ago, there was a group that looked at looking at events downtown. And there was a committee that got together, and as we went around the table of what kind of events or what kind of changes could be made to downtown to increase its vibrancy, which is always a topic of conversation. As we were doing it, Mary Tebow and her husband Eric had been on their own, even though they lived in Main Street of Beaufort, under the chamber. They were doing the First Fridays on their own. They were hiring musicians, they were advertising it, and Main Street Beaufort was just doing the posters for them. At that time, as they went around the table, it became very obvious that the First Fridays was not cut off. And so what they did was they said, you know what, instead of reinventing the wheel, we really just need to do something with this event, this First Friday event, and make it happen. So Eric and Mary came to council. They pitched their idea, and council approved and said, we will help you create a nonprofit organization for downtown Beaufort Merchants Association. It was rumblings about Main Street and the chamber, as well as the CVB. So that was the reason to go ahead and create a nonprofit organization. Downtown Beaufort Merchants Association was created. Mary and Eric were presidents of the association. There was a board. For several years, they've been running the First Fridays. We've come to today, and the First Fridays has been a little bit taxing on the Downtown Beaufort Merchants Association. They tried to create some marketing, social media, but that all has to be managed. The agreement with the city and First Fridays was downtown operations was just beginning. That downtown operations would execute and help with the planning, but that was the city's contribution, right? Hospitality funds were changed a little bit, the way they were distributed, and a portion has always been it has been since that time been given to awarded to Downtown Merchants Association for the events. And then I'll let Joe take over where they're at today and what they're requesting.
Okay. Thank you, Lynn. Thanks for having me this evening, everybody. It's, for those of you who don't know me, my name is Joe O'Brien. I have a retail business downtown. I have since 2013. And that kind of thumbnail history, but it started out with Mary really knocking on everybody's door and seemed to want to participate. And we just started doing it. And it got a little momentum, and people who weren't swayed by Mary's persistence were swayed ultimately by seeing that
or 4 customers in the store, and they're having good nights. There would be no night at all prior to that, so. It was around 2017 when, like Linda said, a lot of that was going on around Main Street in the chamber, and we came to council and asked for support and got it, for which we were grateful. And that was the start of the DBMA as an independent organization. And that really kind of was that, with our partnership with city staff, was a catalyst for First Friday blossoming into a more kind of robust event. People knew what to expect, and there were certain times of the year. I'm sure you all know where it would be a bigger event than it was other times. There would be street closures, live music. We've done food truck, that kind of thing. And it's been success, and it means a lot to the businesses, and I think it's really appreciated by kind of a core group of customers, Beaufortonians, and people who come to Beaufort from Bluffton and Charleston. I don't have data. I'm not great at capturing data from my customers, but people like it, and they show up on a consistent basis. And they ask questions about it, and they participate in the raffle, and they go from store to store. They have their routine. They go out to eat, and so the association, as such, as you all are familiar with this kind of thing, it's all volunteer board. There's no permanent staff member, and that was where the participation of city staff was so critical. When the life of mom and pop merchant is tends to be 6 days, 7 days a week. So the work life, so it really made it possible for us to plan and execute those events. Over time, the leadership of the organization was, again, people who must be mentioned, Eric and Mary Tebow, and then Scott and Andy Lee also, when they came to town and eventually came to own several businesses, and others more recently, but have kept the organization moving, worked closely with city staff. But those of us who had been on the board once and then again twice came to see, and something probably wouldn't be too unfamiliar, this kind of situation where it's the same faces at the meetings, and we were starting to get people who were no longer able to serve on the board for one reason or another, and the ideas started to come to the surface about what next steps might be, and that led to this, where I know that the city is exploring some things with doing more of the events and standing up a new version of Main Street Beaufort. And I guess ours, to boil it down, what we are looking to do is basically transfer, the lack of a better term, ownership of First Friday to the city from the Merchants Association of an independent organization. Wind up the organization and have a committee that would be chaired by the downtown manager, by Sarah, that would be open to other, not just merchants. For a while, it was just the merchants making decisions, and to open it up to other people who are interested in participating, and other groups who have, want to see First Friday continue to succeed. So that's where we were. That was as of a meeting probably a week right after New Year's. I had a couple more, and those of us who have been involved with it since the beginning, I've spoken to everyone, and those who have been involved lately, everybody, I think, thinks this is a reasonable and sort of sustainable approach to continuing First Friday, have it maybe grow in an interesting way, a reboot maybe in some sense, that it will be look at some new, maybe more practical ways of doing things. But you'd have hopefully more input from community members and other civic groups, and really build on the interest that exists, right, based on the efforts of the last really 9 or 10 years.
I think it makes a lot of sense to put it under Main Street. That's kind of no brainer. I like the idea of a committee made up of more than just the merchants.
So the Merchants Association will still exist.
The plan is that it would not.
Okay,
And some of the, when I got on it and I told Mary the day she asked me to be on board, the first day, that I would consider it a success. This organization a success if we could stand up First Friday and have it move into the future with, and build a following and have it be worth the effort for the businesses from a business standpoint, that we are seeing the returns on this, and we got there. And then we kind of exceeded my expectations, to be honest. So that coupled with, I mean, we did try to limit our focus so as not to, you know, get into turf wars with other organizations that were trying to encroach on their territory or, you know, promise things we couldn't deliver. So the focus stayed limited on First Friday. There was another event in partnership with the Hospitality Association, which was successful. But again, that had to be managed and run and executed. So there's still some potential there if there was interest. But I think the practical result would be the Merchants Association dissolves. Those interested in participating in First Friday would join the committee, would volunteer for the committee.
One thing that I will add though is we spoke to Main Street, South Carolina. We had a training session, Sarah and I, and they suggested, we told them what we were thinking. And they suggested, they said, you know, it is harder to get nonprofit organizations in these days to apply for them. They suggested that we mothball the organization because, as we know, several years ago, we wanted to start another Merchants Association. We could do that again if the interest gets there, or if there's a reason. And there are some grants that nonprofit organizations can be helpful to have. So they had suggested that we mothball it, and when you mothball it, you just file your tax returns as zero. And then you can do that for a long period of time. If at any point ideas change and things get, we need to have a nonprofit to do something or open up have another Merchants Association, then if there's any reason, then it could be reenacted. So that was one suggestion. That is a suggestion. As Joe also mentioned, it does make sense that it's under Main Street. And if Main Street's going to if Main Street is going to make plans and do things, we've got to be all inclusive of all the businesses that are downtown, not just a certain small group. We would take on we would take on the communication to all the businesses. We will take, and Sarah's ready to do the marketing for all the businesses. So it just seems to make sense. And we of course are ready to still execute and keep First Fridays going. There is no intent to stop First Fridays. There is a question about funding possibly, but that can, that will be addressed.
If you mothball the Merchants Association and they continue to file, so they're still a nonprofit as far as the state's concerned, they can apply for grants that you couldn't under Main Street, correct?
Yes, sir. Yes, that's the reason why they suggested that we
help funding.
Who's the registered agent?
I think it's either Scott Lee or might be James Duffy right now.
Has that been communicated to them on whether or not this is mothballed and they would know that?
They are aware of the potential for doing that, but again, there still will be some administrative work going on.
Okay, yeah, I would just want them to absolutely be, whoever that is, to be aware of and then be the decision maker ultimately on whether or not it gets mothballed or.
Cross the T's about that.
right.
Years ago, which you would probably remember, most people in here wouldn't. Main Street was like a separate organization. They had memberships, people paid the fees, which paid towards the organization, paid for the director or whatever, whatever the fees would do. Is that a consideration? I mean, I remember that, well, I was at a Main Street meeting the morning of 9/11 and walked out of there and found out that we're under attack. And, anyway, Main Street was mostly funded by the merchant, subsidized by the city. Would that be a consideration?
Maybe, but the city had taken the role of having, shoring up Main Street. The organization kind of went away for different reasons, but if you'll look at Main Street, South Carolina, there are, and throughout the United States, many of the nonprofits, organizations are coming up underneath the cities to keep them alive. There are, to keep them going and create the consistency. It is my understanding that a Main Street is developed in Beaufort because of the mayor. The mayor had supported it, and so at this time, no, the city has been, we pay the dues. We've got a Main Street director, which is Sarah, and so we're trying to make it happen with the city.
From a staffing perspective, you're comfortable with the staffing to take on this additional responsibility?
It is no different than what we've been doing for the last 5-8 years.
It would look a lot like what's going on right now.
It'll look exactly the same. It's the same thing.
And obviously the UEMA's intent to basically mothball doesn't lessen their engagement to be a part of First Fridays.
Not at all,
The
and I
stories
think it
of
might bring
businesses.
some people in who are leery of having the board position. Administrative duties. There's a lot of creative energy down there about what, ideas for First Friday, and people, a couple merchants really took it on last summer into the end of the year, for example, and they brought some kind of, that was part of what I was thinking, that there's really great people in that stay in the committee without board membership. I think that 10 minutes for the people.
Yes, this is maybe more of a legal question, and perhaps we have Ben weigh in, or maybe JJ in his past experience can talk to this a little bit, but my question would be, just to that comment there, my understanding is that a nonprofit has to have a board of directors in place. So if this was mothballed and a committee was stood up, and part of the reason would be because they would be inclined to be a part of a committee, but not necessarily a board, is there a plan for enacting a board of directors that would be in place to still qualify as a nonprofit?
I think that's a great question. I think that the last couple of days we haven't had a follow-up meeting together, but that sort of what that would look like and specifics of who's, as you mentioned, who would be the registered agent, who would be the mechanics of doing that. I think we would have to get a little bit by.
And I think that we'd have to look at it a little closer, but my understanding is you could have one person, so if you wanted to be that, that director, but the IRS recommends having a board of directors, a minimum of 3 for accountability and transparency. So I think all of those things, as this discussion evolved, would have to be hashed out so that we're covered from a legal standpoint too. Now, this is just a totally as an aside, but I have had a couple of merchants downtown who feel like some of the street closures, not necessarily First Friday per se, but some of the street closures are actually hurting their business. Do you feel like there is the potential that street closures are hurting businesses opposed to helping them? And is there a need to maybe further ask around just to see if everybody's on the same page in regards to the benefits of more street closures?
Yes, and at the meeting I mentioned, right in that first week in January, that was a subject that was discussed. And I think people shared some insights that have just learned through experience, that were helpful and that maybe, you know, street closure obviously puts a burden on, more of a burden on city staff, more of a burden on law enforcement. And it changes the dynamic for the merchants a little bit because you're losing a couple hours in the afternoon where that changeover is taking place. And then perception, one of those different things where perception is, oh, it's gonna be a street closure downtown, they're gonna avoid downtown. So somebody who might be coming down the shop late afternoon, probably isn't gonna do it because of anticipating the street closure. But that sort of thing has been discussed, yes. I think a committee with, the focus would be able to.
And we've talked about that because there seems to be in downtown, Merchants Association, they are starting to say, street closures don't help me. We really don't like the street closures. But there are other businesses on the street that we would like to survey and really kind of understand whether we do close the streets or not. I have said, and what we would do in the very beginning is right now, we won't ask for street closures until we know what the impact would
I
be.
think you have to for night on the town because of.
Oh, well,
Yes.
that's a not a,
That's not very much.
So
That's-
it
that's
sounds
not-
like there's a,
Right.
It's not for Friday,
It's not,
but
it's a different
It's for crowds of people.
it sounds like there's a plan in place to get a survey together to better assess whether or not street closures are actually helping or hurting, right?
yes.
Okay.
Yeah, that's on the.
So, would this have an effect on the Tiger initiative?
No, actually, I think it would, no, I think it would enhance. Be a part of, because the Tiger Team initiative has, some of the recommendation has been, is to continue a committee. And there's actually two committees, one, the Tiger Team itself, as well as, a committee that includes more than just merchants, but property owners and people that are invested in downtown. So it actually could help because members of those organizations would be a part of the planning of events on top of the First Fridays.
Has there been any discussion on transfer of remaining assets at DBMA to the city for conducting these events?
Yes, there's some, and that's kind of ongoing. We wanted to, I think the thought was to get it in front of y'all as quickly as we could. And make it, make it clear what the thinking was among the people who got it on the ground. Sure. And there's some funds left, so enough to kind of executing First Friday on the level that we're doing it right now.
Yeah.
But what it would look like going forward, we need some more work.
Yeah, I think we said, well, if that money, then they could continue paying it out for First Fridays until it's depleted. And if there's money for, they have to file taxes or anything like that, that would be kind of safe and do the events also. That's right. That's what we just said. Okay, I just want to make sure.
Questions?
It makes sense.
Those were coming. Appreciate it. It sounds like you're moving in the right direction as far as I'm concerned. And it makes a lot of sense. What's the next step?
I don't know that there needs to be a formal vote for a next step, unless what I said, since I don't think it's anything that requires a resolution. If they're doing it, put together a resolution that formally transfers the operation of First Friday from downtown business merchants to the city.
Okay.
With some understanding of assets and other things that we want to be sure we get in place. We can formalize it as much as you want to.
I think for me, an understanding of the downtown merchants on how street closures are affecting them is important. And then how we would navigate some of the legal ramifications of transferring that with board of directors and all that. Those are the important things for me.
You'll have bylaws and all that. So I think you're good.
And I don't know if those would have to be amended if there was a change, but I think all that would fall under the umbrella of understanding what legal's opinion is.
I think essentially it would just become part of our Main Street program.
Fair statement. Yes, that's a fair statement.
Appreciate it.
Thank you. Thank you for your time.
On deck.
Right, council. We got a road renaming process. You know, say it 3 times.
We're not using that thing.
Reimagine the road naming process. Council, in your packet, you have a non-legal, legal memorandum that I worked on with them. Some habits are hard to break with the Iraq format. There, but back in January, council discussed renaming Southside Loop in honor of Clayton Coulthard, retired Director of Public Works for the city of Beaufort. After that discussion, staff were looking at what the next steps would be for that, because we also knew that we would need to formally name the airport frontage road off of over on Ladies Island that was completed in the spring. The county did not do a formal naming, so we knew we needed to do that process. And there was a lot of debate and different approaches that have been taken in the area. Sometimes this has been done by resolution in some jurisdictions, sometimes by ordinance. So Ben and I looked into it, and in the memorandum, it breaks out what the statutory authorities are that guide us on how we are actually supposed to do that. South Carolina Code 5730 gives the municipalities our general exercise of authority. South Carolina Code 629-1200 is the Comprehensive Planning Act, which specifically addresses road naming within municipalities. We also looked at the MASC Comprehensive Planning Guide and the state and county E911 guidelines. But you can name a road with an ordinance or a resolution in South Carolina. Generally, resolutions are for temporary namings. So an example would be Conway, South Carolina, rename some of their roads in their city Howland Town. And they do that by resolution, but it's more of a temporary thing. In this case, a formal naming, we believe the code requires, and the best practice is to do that through ordinance means, so that it is a formal all on behalf of the city. So the next question was, does that need to go in front of the planning commission? And 6-29-1200 is pretty clear that any proposed changes to a street name and any new names of roads that appear on a municipality's official map should be reviewed by the planning commission before the council takes final action. So we of course want these road names to appear on our official map. So staff will be taking council's recommendations for both of these roads to the planning commission. The planning commission would hold a public hearing and make a recommendation back to council, just like we would with any other major ordinance update. And then we would hold another public hearing at city council, 2 readings of the ordinance, and update those road names via ordinance, just like we would a normal ordinance amendment or any amendment to the comprehensive plan. And throughout that process, seek input from E911, let Postal Service know, and provide notification to all people that live on that, or businesses that are located on those roads. So that's the overall process. Does council have any questions about that process and how we follow the more formal process here?
Makes sense. So we have 2 public hearings.
Well, you have one public hearing from the planning commission, another public hearing from the council. There'll be plenty of opportunities, 2 readings on the ordinance for any public input.
And would that be necessary? I mean, I think it's valuable, the more opportunities for the public to be engaged. I'm not opposed to that, but would it be necessary to have 2 public hearings if you have a public hearing at the planning commission? And I think, if I remember right, that is part of the responsibilities because of this statute for the planning commission is to review any road changes.
So that section is not quite as clear. The best practice and what most municipalities that we looked into do is having the public hearing at both to be on the safe side. It addresses any public hearing concerns on city council's ordinance authority, and it addresses the public hearing requirements in the comprehensive plan act. So you may not have to, again, it's not that clear, but rather on the side of caution. We're gonna have public comment on the first reading anyway, so.
It makes sense because if we don't participate in a public hearing or hear it, but in front of planning council, then we don't get the benefit of the public comment. So if we have that public hearing on council, it's a secondary thing. We do get to hear that before we make a decision.
And I would agree. I guess the point I was making is in another conversation in our strategic planning session, the planning commission kind of advocated to see either annexations or rezoning, and the discussion was you could have your public hearing at your planning commission, and then you may or may not have a public hearing at your regular session. And so,
by one public hearing.
right, exactly. So I don't know if this would still be the same thing, just kind of tying in that conversation where it would be best practice to go ahead and have 2 public hearings or opportunities. We could sure go back and listen to the public comment, watch the video, but it would provide more opportunities. I don't know if this would just kind of carry over and be the same best practice for that.
Yeah, most likely. My experience has always been, on the side of caution, you never have too many opportunities for public comment on any type of long-term ordinance, change, which ultimately comprehensive planning, the development code, annexations, road naming, those are long-term changes. So it doesn't hurt, and that would be our recommendation on just about everything that we do in front of the planning commission that comes to city council, is to go ahead and have that public comment, not public comment, but public hearing. Just to be on the same.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I think it'd be good.
More is better.
Right, so if there's no questions about the naming process, council, we do need to formally name Airport Frontage Road. It's been known as both Airport Frontage Road and Airport Junction. I've seen that name on both of those names on multiple documents. We reached out to the county to see if they had any recommendations based on the work they've done previously. And they had the same issue. Airport Frontage Road and Airport Junction Road both appear on multiple documents. So they don't have any position or recommendation along those lines.
Airport Junction was the PUD, right?
Yeah, that's right.
I'm sorry.
Could be airport
The plan you development was named the Airport Junction.
That means
That's
institutional
where it
knowledge.
came from.
Yeah.
But that would be, I mean, that would make more sense, although I don't believe they actually utilize that in any of the naming of the Walmart stuff.
I believe that is correct.
I'm not gonna argue.
Didn't hear these until today, so I'll pass it around. I didn't print a copy off for everybody. This is the ultimate plan for Airport Junction Road or Airport Frontage Road. The part that was completed was phase 1. That was the loop that came from Sea Island Parkway over to Lost Island Road. And the phase 2 is a completely new roadway that would go from Lost Island Road over to Little Creek Road. And
That makes sense.
yeah. And that is under right-of-way acquisition with the county right now. That is a funded project. They anticipate getting out for construction fourth quarter of this year. That was an update today. So
Is this where we just did the green space sales tax thing?
No, there's an island,
Over back,
there's an island there that goes across the
Oh, that's right.
roadway, and it'll be extended to beyond Inlet Road as well.
Yeah.
So that you can't make left-hand turns into it.
So the county would follow suit. In other words, if we go ahead and recommend a name change, they would follow what we have when they go to see.
That is correct. Whatever name we ultimately choose, what the rest of the phase two roadway would be named as well.
So do we come up with a name or do we open it up for a public hearing to have?
I think you could suggest a name and then public hearing. you may find one
Yeah,
like,
so- But we'll take, might kick one to us too, right? Yeah, the planning commission might kick one to us as a recommendation too, right? Yep, so we'll take any recommendations from council on this and, the Southside Loop renaming in honor of Clayton Cooler. We'll take those recommendations, present those to the planning commission, allow them to provide their input. They'll have a public hearing and public input on it, and then they will make a formal recommendation back to council on the final thing, but we do want your input so that we have a starting point for those conversations. Was there anybody pulling more towards frontage road or junction road, or do we want to go with something completely different?
Well, you have the opportunity to do whatever you want. One of the things you could do, and I've said to suggest, but actually it could be considered if you wanted to pay homage to the previous owner of that tract, you could name it Fred's Way or something like that. Just an option. If you wanted to memorialize it after another famous Beaufortonian, we could think of one to memorialize it after. It doesn't have to continue with the airport junction. Airports are real. There are enough roads around here named airport. It might be more confusing to give it an airport name than correct.
It's across the street from the airport.
If you extend that,
It's across the
extend
street.
that, no, that's not Fred's property.
It's not at the airport, it's across the street.
Yes.
So we need to get those recommendations.
Because if it isn't,
Sometime in the next couple of weeks, we'd like relatively quick get this during the planning commission. Yeah, so council wants to provide the input. Individually, we can just collectively put that together and provide that to the planning commission.
And you don't have to agree on just one name.
Yes.
Take several, the planning commission, say, that's a starting point. You just figure out what the council does.
Okay. Any questions about naming of airport road or the road naming process?
So when do you need the recommendation?
If we could get those within the next week or two, we'd like to get this in front of the planning commission.
from an emergency response standpoint, does it make sense if we said like airport extension or something, is that too confusing?
Well, I think the comment about having as many airport names as we have, because we've got here and Hilton Head.
Yeah, I know, it's just too many, yeah, I agree.
So what we'll do is seek input when narrow things down, we'll seek input from C911. And they'll tell us we have X number of this road name here. Well, over the phone in emergency, that sounds like this, and it can be confusing. They'll have an opportunity for input on that.
Yeah, Shorts Landing is right there.
And there's
No, not Shorts Landing.
short road.
Shorts.
Shorts Landing is on.
Shorts Landing, you pass that.
There's a short road.
Across the marsh. Right across the marsh.
There's a short right there. Ballroom.
Stretch wasn't.
Oh, is it really?
Yeah. Whether council wants to take time to think about it and provide some individual inputs, we'll be happy to consolidate those and provide those directly to the planning commission. And that process, but we do want to move relatively quickly with these because there'll be at least a 30-day notice for each of those public hearings. And then 2 readings on the ordinance change, so it'll be this summer at the earliest before we have actually made the formal changes or adopted the formal changes.
I think Tony Street has a ring to it.
Tony Street.
Oh, snap.
Tony Turnpike.
Tony Turnpike. Well, sounds like a Mario Kart one, maybe.
Mr. Mayor, that's all I have.
Okay,
That Marshall.
before we adjourn, is there any public comment? Anybody want to say anything?
One thing.
Y'all have any suggestions for road names?
What
is Which one? Fred's Way?
Redway, that's why.
About that,
About Eisenberg.
Fancy Loop.
There's probably not a lot of Fred.
Probably not a lot.
I think it'd be a nice, I mean, I know he has a police station named after, but I think it'd be a nice Clancy blue. Matt Clancy.
Well, we got what? Yeah, some additions over.
Something to think about. Any further comment from? Hearing none, I'm gonna adjourn the session.